Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. It's Saturday, the 29th of April, almost 6 a.m. David Addison, we start a little bit early just for you. I am in the nation's capital today. That's why it looks a bit different. We're in a hotel room here. Sarah's decent. I'll swing you around. Still in bed. So we're away for a big multi-day event for Sarah's business. And I'm finally able to string a few words together without coughing my guts up. I'm recovering from COVID. It was bloody horrible the second time around, let me tell you. So that's why you haven't seen any videos on either of the channels in the last couple of weeks, because it's besides the stuff that I've pre-recorded, because we've been bloody crook, really, really crook. I'll bring on Mr. Macro McMillan. Morning, Greg.
G'day.
G'day. How are things over in sunny Canada?
They're not not bad. It could warm up though. Like, man, we had summer weather about 3 weeks ago, and then it just plummeted back down to almost zero again. It's just been pathetic. But
is it snowing again?
No. Well, no. You know what? We got one day where we had a skiff of snow, but it was like a few snowflakes in it. You could see it on the grass and that, but that was it. But I think we're in for some rain for most of the next week. So
unpleasant.
Not going to be too fun.
Wow. The setup that I've got going on here, I was saying to you before, I've normally got like the stream deck down here, just push buttons to do different things with StreamYard. And I've got cables running everywhere. I've got Sarah's MacBook sitting on top of boxes and books, and a light over there and a light up here. It's a funny setup while you're not in your regular space.
Yeah.
You're like, what's going to work? I was sitting over there. That didn't work quite right. Sitting over here, got a lamp going there, got a little one of these little things.
Oh, yeah.
They're so good. Well, there we go. I was going to say they're so good for doing this until it falls off into my camera bag, which is what it's actually sitting on. Yeah,
the joys of travel.
Yeah, it's kind of like a farmer's fix for everything. Like you see things broken on the farm, and you go, I might have a bit of wire to fix that, or a bit of baling twine, or something like that, and that's usually how things get fixed. As long as it works, it doesn't matter. Morning, Nicola. Duct tape.
Yeah.
When it's meant to move and it doesn't, use WD-40, and it's moving and it's not meant to, use duct tape.
That's right.
That's
funny story with WD-40 real quick here. When I was in high school, I was in a drafting class, and back then the drafting tables had like a slider, a straight edge that you slid up and down the table, and it had these strings that go up and around these pulleys. Well, this one pulley came off on this one kid's desk, and he says to the teacher, "Sir, my this thing broke here." He says, "Teacher, him and the this was not architectural drafting, but mechanical drafting." Anyway, his class backed with the maintenance or the machine shop teacher, so they're always in cahoots. So he says, "Well, just go see Mr. Doherty, and he'll give you some WD-40, and that'll fix that right up." Well, the kid goes down, he gets this can of WD-40, he's raising on there, he's holding it down like this, and he says, "It's not sticking, sir. It's not sticking." We're all trying to not laugh, and finally, after about 5 minutes, the teacher threw a wooden ruler at him, threw it at him. "You dunce! That's not even glue."
That's pretty
all kinds of stuff like that going on.
When I was still in the army, we used to play that sort of stuff, those sorts of tricks on the new guys. So I was working with armored vehicles a lot, and you do pretty much all the maintenance yourself, like as the crew of that vehicle, and you have the new guys coming up to the compound, and you like say it'd be coming into summer, so you'd look at all the wheel nuts on all the road wheels along the side of the tank, and because the thread lock that's on there is blue, you tell them to go to the storeroom and get the red ones, because the red ones are for summer and the blue ones are for winter. and they change all the wheel nuts on all the vehicles, and it would take them all day, but it would keep them out of your hair. No pun intended. I remember being in the turret, and in the turret of these things, you had he had a 30 caliber machine gun and a heavy 50 caliber machine gun. So it's like half an inch is the diameter of the bullet going down the barrel. So you can look down this thing and you see the rifling. It's big.
Yeah.
I remember looking down the barrel and like just swearing my head off and throwing my helmet around. And the young fella's like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" I said, "Oh, my rifling's all screwed. It's gone. It's buggered. Go to Ramey, which is the mechanics, you know. Go to Ramey and get me some new rifling."
Oh, no.
and then go to Ramey, and the Ramey sergeant there, he knew what I was like, and
Yeah.
he some drilling spool, like when you've drilled a heap of metal and you've got all the drillings, and he'd walk back with this like length of drilling like this here to put it in the back. funny.
So he breaks it. You're trying to screw it in.
Just right. You idiot! That's the wrong caliber.
Yeah. Oh. Well, this
morning,
could be a
Dale.
whole new
Blink
show.
twice
That's-
and you've
that's
been.
kinda tough.
If you blink twice if you've been kidnapped, Shane, because I've been somewhere different. So you've written some columns,
Yeah.
and the one that the first one that I've seen, and I didn't see the first one, but I'll go looking for it after this. But the one that I saw was about phone cameras. Are they real cameras? Sort of situation. But whilst the people who are watching here right now, I'm curious as to whether you own one or more, or two or more, I should say, cameras, including your phone. So if you've got a phone and a point and shoot, or a phone, a DSLR, that sort of thing, just make a note there. I'm kind of curious. I do, because I use the other gear, all my Sony gear I use for the paid work, like the weddings, corporate work, that sort of stuff. But I think I would get some pretty horrific looks if I turned up to a wedding with a couple of iPhones slung over my shoulder and started shooting with iPhones. So I'm curious as to what people have. So one has just an iPhone now. That's interesting as well. We'll talk about it in a second. So give us the cliff notes of your column, mate.
Well, there was I think what sparked me to write it was the fact that there's so much, I call it camera snobbery, and I don't mean to offend anyone by that term, but it's when people don't think that the phone is a real camera. And it's my I go through a little bit about the history of photography and how it changed and evolved over the years, and it's always been accepted. So when people were able to take pictures with phones, well, it's a camera, and it's something different, something new, and excuse me, I'm just asking people to accept it for what it is. And photography's been around since the mid 1800s, and what would the artists back in those days think? The painters, what would they think when somebody could take a picture with a camera and create an image, but without paint and without a brush and all that stuff? And well, it became an accepted medium, right? So the iPhone is just another step, or phones in general they're just another step in the evolution of photography. I mean, who knows what's going to be next? So, these people that don't think they're cameras, well, they are. And a few years ago in my local camera club, I put on a presentation about pictures that I took with my phone, and I think I probably still had my Canon back then, but hang on, I got a cough again.
'Tis the way it is, mate.
Oh, I go through this every day when I wake up. I've only been up for about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yep.
But anyway,
Me too.
Yeah. So at this camera club meeting, I presented pictures I took with my phone, and I talked about the fact that they're photos and they're images, and I said, that the iPhone has a shutter, the iPhone has an aperture, even though it's fixed. The iPhone has ISO, a sensor, all this stuff. And I said, doesn't everybody's camera have those things? So, and then at the end of it all, I said, now who here in this room doesn't think that the phone is a camera. Well, nobody put their hand up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just this whole camera snobbery thing is just, there's no place for it in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's you know, and that's what I love about the mobile photography community. There's no elitism, but you know, there's more and more pros coming into the fold, I guess you could say, who are using their phones probably for the first time, you know, maybe to take serious photos and stuff. And but some of them are still making the odd comment about it, you know, didn't have my camera with me, so I just used my phone. Well, you had your camera with you because you had your phone with you. And
That's right.
That's what sparked me to write the whole thing to begin with. So
Yep.
I thought it was an interesting piece, and it's getting a lot of good feedback. And then you know what? I even learned something from writing this about the
What's
iPhone. What I learned was that the shutter on the iPhone, and maybe you knew this, I don't know, but I didn't know this. The shutter, it's not like a, you know, a shutter, like a mechanical shutter. It's an electronic shutter where the sensor turns on and off. Did you know that? I did not know
I
that.
didn't. I've never thought of it, but a lot of mirrorless cameras work that way.
I didn't know that. I had no freaking idea. So I looked into it. I looked into it, and the guy's name that made the comment was, I think his name was Robert Bailey. I thanked him. You know, hey, thanks for making this comment because that's something I didn't know, and I thought it was really interesting how it just gives me a whole new outlook on how the phone camera works.
I think this here wanted to participate in an astro class and got snubbed by the teacher, and I think this is the exact sort of scenario that I come across in doing what I do. In that, with astrophotography, I think when you've got a specific niche of photography, that's when you start having to, from a I have a camera perspective, you need to spend money, and you generally need to spend a lot of money to get good results. Whether it's bird photography or astrophotography, you've usually got to spend a few pennies to get the similar sort of results to the guys who are spending big money.
Yeah.
But now, especially with things like the Pixel, the S23 Ultra, with the Expert RAW, like that's incredible. And to be able to get that sort of thing out of a phone with a tiny little sensor, I should actually do a comparison video between that S23 Ultra Astro and my A7 Astro, because they're not that far apart. And when people start, I get it a lot on the channel. I used to delete them because I think it creates too much hostility. With people say, "Oh, you're wasting your bloody time doing it with phones." I'm like, "Did you not read what the fucking channel's about, you moron?"
Yeah, exactly. It's
and I think to myself, you're just someone who has spent a lot of money on a camera to go and do your astrophotography. And like I said to you in that comment that I made, it might have been on the Explorers of Life group, I'm not sure. It's like, when I can get Angry Birds on my Sony, we'll talk more. But
yes, I remember that.
The phone can just do so much more. There's a lot of people in these comments here who have got two cameras, and for the most part, they use the phone for all of it. This is an interesting comment from Dale here about this AI. I saw a photo on that same group, that Explorers of Life group, and it was a photo of, it must be a well-known place in the UK, I'm guessing. It's like all this water across the rocks that came in. It was like Devil's Hole or something it was called.
Yes, I remember seeing that. Yep.
And it looked amazing. I thought, bloody hell, is that like a reflex or an even longer shot? And I read the comments, it was AI.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually anyone who took that. And I thought, that's probably the next evolution as to where we're going. And then where do you go with this is a purely AI generated image. It's no longer photography, I guess. It's
digital art.
Digital art, but done by somebody else. but they'll buy
Well, yeah, that's
something
the
else.
thing, eh? Like, it's not the only thing that the person that puts that out there has to do with it is their data input into
Look,
the
I'm a photographer. I can type on a keyboard. Yeah.
I wish that stupid AI crap would just go away. I really do. There's just no place for it in photography. I
Yeah.
got I got no use for it. I played around with that Mid-Journey thing a little bit, but
Yep.
I got no use for it.
Yeah.
If I
I had
want
to
to
play
create
with
something,
it.
I'll create it myself.
Yeah. I had to play with it looking for, there was a thing with YouTube creators using it for building scripts for videos. I don't script anything that I do. You probably know that because of just how badly they're put together. And the other thing was the descriptions in videos, because the descriptions is what really, the descriptions and the content of the video is what really drives that algorithm. So a lot of people were using AI to write their descriptions, and I was watching a lot of what they were doing, and the amount of time they would spend inputting data into, was it like Chat GTP or whatever the freaking hell it's called, things like that, to give you that information. I thought I probably could have done that quicker just by typing in what the video's about, because there's no point telling people the video's about something when it's about something else entirely. So I don't know.
I put in that Chat GTP thing. I thought, well, okay, I'm gonna try this, see what it's like, and I just typed in the iPhoneography podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And it said it was a podcast hosted by people I've never even freaking heard of before.
Is that right?
Like, yeah, like I don't know where it come up with these names. Well, I tried it about 3 or 4 times. A couple times it used names of people who, tech journalists or whatever. It's just stupid. It's just dumb.
Yeah.
It's not even intelligent, in my opinion.
This is an interesting comment here. This the Canon 7200 2.8. That's an awesome lens. 7200 lens f2.8 is a lens to go for pretty much everything that I shoot for at weddings and portrait photography and all that sort of stuff. It's an incredible lens, and I haven't seen anything on a phone yet that can replicate what that can do. You can get the sharpest of sharp lenses, like those the shift cam lenses that I was testing, and using that on the telephoto lens, and still just not getting that lens compression with the bokeh on an iPhone. Just it's just not there yet. But
it's optics. It's optics and physics, and you can't compare.
That's right. That's right. And it's something that it's one of the very few things that I go, this is where your phone, this is where your camera is better than your phone. I can't achieve that look and that lens compression from a phone as well as I can with the optics of a 7200 or more lens.
Yeah,
it's just one of those things. I think, and I think you touched on it a little bit in that article, in the column. There's a few things that a phone just is not there with just yet. Optics is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
I would say with what I do, that lens sensor is not big enough for doing what I do as well as a regular camera. But like the astrophotography, the light painting, that sort of stuff. In saying that, the computational photography certainly minimizes that gap, I think.
Yeah.
Look at the Pixel, for example, the way it works. It's so damn easy to do, and you can go and get some amazing images out of a Pixel, and they're so close to what Canon cameras were, Canon DSLR cameras were just a couple of years ago.
And it's funny you just bring up that point about the gap, because my next one's going to be called "The Gap is Getting Smaller."
Is that right?
Yeah.
And it is.
And spoiler alert, it's about the gap between phones and traditional cameras, how the gap is getting smaller between the two.
Yep. And I think I touched on that a little bit with those lenses, because those lenses, those shift cam lenses, the edges of those, that's something that I've always struggled with iPhone lenses, is that the edges of the lens is always distorted. I've never found one that's not. I've just accepted that's just the way it is with phone lenses.
But they used to be good back when pre pre iPhone 11 or even pre 10,
okay. Yep.
with the 6, 8, 6, 7, 8 series, maybe the 10s. It was
Is
good.
that the
They
X's?
were good. The X's. Okay, when in Rome, I know.
Yeah, when in Canberra.
But the optics were good, but the optics of the cameras have changed over the years, but the lens makers haven't changed their optics.
Yeah, okay.
And it's just, you can't, it's physics, So this shift cam stuff looks pretty darn impressive. Because it's
really
new,
is.
right? It's new and it's made for the new cameras.
Yeah. And I went through and had a look at there's a few different creators who made videos, like Addison made some stuff. He was obviously impressed with them as well. And there's guys there, the iPhoneographers. There's a YouTube channel, iPhoneographers. And they did some videos. They were pretty impressed with it too. Everyone that I've seen who have had these things has been impressed with it. I think Ralph was probably the only one that he said to me, "Oh, they're good, but they're not as good as what he was hoping for." But for the three that I tested, and I tested them a fair bit, I was very happy with them. I think that it narrowed that gap, as you say. I've only been photography 8 or 9 years of using iPhone, mainly Astro, branching out to other genres lately. Oh, you bought the P900. That's that thing that zooms into the moon, isn't it? Is that the one? I'm pretty sure it is. I might be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. That Nikon P900, that's that. It has like a ridiculous optical zoom, and it's incredible for taking photos of the moon.
Oh, yeah.
Like the Samsung Galaxies have got nothing on this thing. But again,
with
try
their
and check
fakeness and all.
Just you go ahead and try and check your email on your P900 though.
Or try taking the picture and then posting it right away.
Yeah, this will be 17 to 40. Is that a kit lens? 17 to 40? Maybe, I'm not sure. 17 to 40. Most kit lenses
17 to 40. I thought the 17 to 40 was a really, really good lens.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know that I wouldn't. I've never used that anyway. I've never had that combination. I know that if it is a kit lens, all the stuff that I do with the photography group in town, their kit lenses, they're very soft on the edges until you stop them way down to like 5.6 or 8, something around there. Yeah. Just want to check through these other, because there's been a lot of comments here. Generally speaking, most people have got the phone, one camera, and most people have gone away from using that one camera.
Yeah. And I don't know if you saw it, but Dale said earlier that he's watching this stream on his camera right now.
Yeah, I did say that. and I dare say that most people are. The 50. I just wanted to click on this because his name's cool. The 52-year-old gamer plays. Pete, is the P900? Can someone tell me that P900 is? Oh, it's just an earlier lens. That P900, is that one that zooms in incredibly close to the moon? Normally, I'd be answering this question myself on my second monitor while we're live streaming, but I don't have anything here. I'm giving mobile photography courses since 5 years in Germany.
Yeah, it is, Shane. I just looked it up.
Yeah,
and it's like a non-interchangeable camera lens.
Yeah,
that just goes way out.
Yeah, and the images of the moon, that's like a one-trick pony. That camera, it's incredibly good for doing that. I don't think there's anything on the market that you can pull out of a box and shoot like that thing can do. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Right now, so yes, mobile photography. Yeah, absolutely. Crazy. Lots of comments here saying, go take the other camera to my son's track meet today. That's interesting too. With depending on what camera you've got going on there and how close you can get to it all. I think the Galaxy family of cameras, the 21, 22, and 23, at least those ones, have got it when it comes to doing that sort of a thing. I don't know if you could hear Sarah coughing then. Did you hear Sarah coughing in?
Yeah, but it's okay.
She's got it going on just like I have. It's awesome. Doing that sort of thing, like track meets, I think the iPhone's probably going to struggle generally in that sort of environment. But when you've got that 10 optical zoom on that other camera, it's hard.
Unless you can get in by the track, like
that's right.
If you can't get close, then yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's location, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is.
So, what else, as far as besides the lenses and the size of the sensor, what do you see any other benefit over a regular camera to the phone camera?
Well, apps like Reheld are making it so interesting to use. And I'll go back to a quick little story about it was in the autumn. There was a popular waterfall. There was a lot of people there, and there was two guys standing there with tripods. Or no, sorry, one guy. His buddy was down the stream a bit, but we were right near the top of the waterfall, and I just had my XS Max, and Spectre was fairly new at the time. So this guy, he's got his tripod, he's got a big Nikon DSLR, a nice good lens, filters on the end, the whole 9 yards, and he's shooting the waterfall. Yeah. I go in with my iPhone, and I, right beside him, but I'm looking down. I'm careful not to touch his tripod, and I go like this. There we are. I go like this with my phone, and I take I think it was the 5-second shot of the waterfall.
Yep.
And then right away I'm looking at the image and whatnot, and I could it's almost like he's breathing down my neck. I looked and I said, and I could see him looking at my phone. So I showed him the picture and I said, it's just bloody amazing what you can get with these things now, isn't it? Well, that sparked about a 20-minute conversation.
Yep.
And he was impressed. He was blown away. He had no idea you could do that with a phone. And he had no idea it was that easy. And so, I mean, I didn't have my own podcast back then. So I told him about Tiny Shutter, and he said, oh yeah, I'll give it a listen and all this stuff. And I didn't have to wait till I get home to take the card out of the camera and put it in the computer.
Yep.
I was able, if I wanted to, I didn't at the time, but if I wanted to, I could have edited it and put a post on Instagram right then and there.
Yeah.
But I didn't. And I asked, when I interviewed Rick Salmon, I asked him, what is the draw for, these pro photographers who are starting to use their iPhones? And he said for him, it started back with him and Scott Kelby were in China on a like a photo trip. And Rick's wife, Susan, she'd been using her iPhone for years before he did. Mm-hmm. And he said, so him and Scott Kelby, they're, they get the tripods out and they're getting the cameras out and their big lenses out. And his wife, Sue, click. And she had it done, edited on Instagram before they even focused their cameras.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was just blown away.
Yeah.
And he said in the interview, he said, so in his house, he's got his office and she's got her office. And he's been podcasting for years with different people and whatnot. And she said recently, you've been having way more fun with this phone than you have all the time using the camera. And
yeah, right.
And that's what he said. He said, he said, how many times do I use the word fun in this interview? And so that's another big draw, another big plus as to using the phone as opposed to a big camera. I mean, big cameras are still far superior with picture quality, I think, especially the bigger sensor ones and whatnot. You get the good glass, but I mean, it's the person behind the camera that makes the difference too.
It's a combination of those things. I think it's
sure.
I remember going to Queenstown in New Zealand, and there's a gallery in there of a guy who I think he's shot. His full-time gig is shooting for It might be Porsche or Mercedes. He's one of those two high-end car manufacturers, and he's the photographer for them.
Oh.
And he shoots on like Hasselblad or some bloody thing like this.
Mm.
But the landscape images, like anyone who's been to New Zealand to shoot landscape photography knows what I'm talking about here. Everywhere you look is a photo. And this guy has got his galleries. The smallest image in that gallery would be probably 5 meters long, and they're all on glass. And he gets all of these things printed in Germany. They get shipped over to New Zealand in a container. And when I was talking to this guy, like Dennis Rodman was in there a week before just buying photos to put in his new house. Like he's like a big, well-known in that arena sort of thing. I can't even think of his bloody name, and that's sad. But these images were just incredible, and they were massive, and that added to the awe of it all, you know.
Yeah.
But you just could not do that with a phone. It would be impossible to do it with a phone. You can get this
absolutely
close to those images and still see details of blades of grass and rocks and pebbles. And you just couldn't do that with a phone.
I mean, the best you could do right now is with the 48 Pro, with the 14 Pro with a 48 megapixel sensor, and you can blow it up 4 feet by 5 feet, whatever you want. You can use gigapixel AI to really get the most out of it.
Yeah,
but it's probably still not going to be as crystal clear sharp as something you'd get like from a high-end Hasselblad.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And the images that I was taking there, and I'll get back there at some point just to do phones. Somebody made a comment here in while we've been talking here about them going on holiday now, and they haven't taken a camera with them for the last 2 years on holidays.
Yeah.
Has anyone been on holidays for the last 2 years? I don't know. It's only recently we've been able to go places, I guess. But I'd like to go back to New Zealand just with phone to take, because all the stuff I was doing there was like 15 to 30 minute long exposure photos, and in my head use reflex or even longer to do that sort of thing, and you're going to end up with, and you're going to end up with great photos and great images, and I've got those images all over my house on the wall at home. From that trip. It's an amazing place to do that sort of thing, and you could definitely do it with the phone and printing to the size that I was printing, which is probably for the biggest one. The biggest one I would say there would be probably 30 inches on the longest edge. Yeah, and you could certainly do that with a phone these days. By doing what you're talking about there. I really like Reheld too. With Reheld with me is that I think the long exposure stuff that you're going to do less than 30 seconds, you want something that's moving a damn sight quicker than what I have where I am. You want water moving around rocks, you want waterfalls, that sort of stuff, and I just don't have that. So I've not been able to really push that app as well as what others have. It's a geographic thing. That's just the way it is.
You're just going to have to come over here, and I'll take it to some rivers and waterfalls. And
maybe. When speed is the old, nothing beats the phone. Absolutely. I can tell you now, setting up those photos in New Zealand, it was all using ND filters and stacking ND filters. And I would sit there with my calculator working out the photo. It would take me a good bloody 5 to 10 minutes to set up this photo, but and then still take it for 15 to 30 minutes long. But you still sit there with your calculator for your Lee filters and stuff, working out how long the shutter needed to go for. Whereas something like even longer, put it on a tripod, shoot it for as long as you want, and then rob it your mother's brother.
And no filter needed.
No filter needed. Stitch photo. You could. I've never tried it. Actually, I have tried to do that. I have done that with not the tele lens as such, but I've done. It'd be a similar sort of situation to doing multi-level panoramas, and stitching panoramas together. It would be the same sort of thing, but you can certainly do it. It makes sense. There's a task for you, Dale, or Sam Jones. Good evening from the UK. Oh, there you go. how bored must this person be to go and watch our old live streams?
Yeah.
Wow.
I noticed David Grigo said earlier, Reheld is awesome, but not for Android. There's nothing similar. And that's the thing with that's the thing with phones and the camera systems, is that with Android, and we've talked about this before, with Android, there's so many different variables in the phones and manufacturers, and it's Android, but they've got their own software on there and everything else. With the iPhone, it's the level playing field across the board. That's why not everybody, but that's why a lot of people develop for iOS, because it's so easy to get it out there to more people.
Yeah, so exactly.
It is unfortunate that stuff like that's not available for Android, because it sucks that they're missing out.
Well, some non-iPhones have this sort of thing built in. All the Huawei's do. The Huawei's, I've said this to you before, I think, if you had OIS and you had the Huawei camera system, that would be an unbeatable phone. It's an incredible camera system on those phones, on the ones that I've played with anyway. And you can do all the things that we're sitting here talking about, all these third-party apps. It just does it in the camera app. It's bloody amazing, I think. Brian Wilson, isn't he a Beach Boy?
Yeah. He used to be. Maybe he's a photographer now.
He might be. Absolutely, they're expensive. I think every photographer who makes money from what they do at some point, and because I definitely went through this, I went through, that's a cool bit of kit, I'm going to buy that because it's a cool bit of kit, and you have it and you play with it for a little while, and then it ends up in the cupboard. And now every single thing that I buy, whether it's for the YouTube stuff or whether it's for the commercial photography stuff, I look at it and I go, is that going to make me money? And if the answer is maybe or no, it never gets bought. That's just the way it is now. And when you're looking at Hasselblad, you go, well, you've got to be like incredibly wealthy with money to throw away, or you've got a specific need for that camera that's going to make you the money back. I think they're the only two options really to buy that sort of a camera. Good point, Dale. Oh, yes. That's about the stitching together, I think.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
The rumors on an iPhone. It is the time of year. I haven't heard anything about a periscope lens on an iPhone 15. Have you?
I've heard 6 times, and I've heard 10 times. I'm hoping it's the 10 times, but I could see them doing 6 times before 10 times, just because they take baby steps with this stuff, right?
Yeah.
To say for sure that they're going to have a periscope zoom, my own gut feeling is just telling me it's about an 80% chance.
Okay. I've seen that many, and before doing the YouTube stuff, before starting this channel, I've never really paid any heed to the rumors that come for phones. I've just never given a shit about it. I just go, when it's launched, then I'll see what it is, and then I'll get it if I want to get it. And it's only since here now that I go, what are people saying about this? And I must admit, in the last 12 months, I've just stopped listening to it, because I find personally, 75% of it is just false.
Yeah.
And I go, who cares? We can sit here talking about something that may never, ever, ever happen. To me, it's just it's a waste of conversation.
And then there's the point where I like to be in shock and awe when I do see the announcement. I don't want to say, okay, yeah, I knew this was coming. Oh yeah, I knew that was coming. I don't want to do that. I'd rather be surprised and then try to figure out how the hell I'm going to afford it.
Yeah, I hear you. Android is fantastic with the built-in functions. Well, it just depends on the camera. Some have got better camera systems. I believe the Pixel can do the long exposure stuff. The latest one. So it's there. Like if the manufacturers want to do it, it's there. Just hire the right people to do it, and it will happen. I've done it a few times, 3 times on my Pro Max. Oh, I
So
see
he's
what
done
he
the
is.
stitching, yeah.
Yep. Oh, this is Reese. Reese has been on the show before.
Yeah.
Reese, he's a clever little bugger, isn't he?
Oh, he is.
Some of the stuff that he's done, I think, was it him? Might have actually been Dave from New Zealand. Dave, my Aperture Tales, Dave. He sent me a video on Instagram, and it's somebody who has done like a reel or something like that with the S23 Ultra, with the super slow mo, and it's something that I've never thought to do. And I'm now that I'm feeling better when I get home, I'm going to be doing this. The fire spinning video that I did a while back now. It's probably due for another one anyway.
Yeah.
But I'll do it with that, with the super slow mo. And this guy did a video with a super slow mo with in a lightning storm. It's incredible. You can see the lightning bolts coming down, like slowly coming down.
Oh, that's cool.
Very, very, very cool.
Because that's something like 960 frames per second or something, is it?
Yeah,
and you can only shoot
incredibly
for like
fast.
a quarter of a second or something. Like it's not very long. Well, no,
Yeah.
maybe not a quarter of a second. Maybe
I think it'd be longer than
a
that.
second or 2 seconds or something.
Yeah. So I'll do that with the fire spinning and see what we can get with that, because that, to me, that's moving fast enough that you should be able to get some pretty cool effects.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah.
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 And now that it's pretty wet at home, so I've got no worries with it burning the joint down.
Yeah.
Apple haven't announced the invention of the periscope. Not that I know of. I might be wrong here, but I don't think Apple themselves release anything before the phone. There might be a couple of little leaks here and there that
the
turn out to
emoji
be
at
true.
the end of that. The emoji at the end of that reveals that he's being a little sarcastic. I
believe. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Different, a little screen, Greg. I'm barely making out the words.
But I mean, he's got a point too, because like you say, I'm trying to think back over the last few years if they've really come out with something that, I think they were the first ones to have portrait mode on the phones. So I mean, they have blazed the trail a little bit here and there, but with a lot of things though, people will bring out stuff like the folding phones, for instance. There's been 4 or 5 years now they've been out trying to put them out there. They're not going to do it until they can do it right, without any failure.
Sure.
And if they
the
can't
periscope
do it,
lenses, they've been around for a while now. And
yeah,
surely you've mastered that. If you wanted to do it, you would have mastered it by now and pushed it out there. I don't know. I don't know why you wouldn't do it. Like to like the flip phones and stuff. I get that. The phones aren't, unless you're using like the 14 Pro Max, they're not that big. The phones. I don't see a reason to fold them down as such.
No.
I don't know. I've never been a fan of the folding phones, the flip phones and stuff.
No,
to me, it's just never made sense. But the periscope stuff's been around for a while now, and if they were going to do it, you'd think they would have done it with the 14. I don't know.
I mean, that was rumored with the 14 all the time too. Like, oh, they're going to put a periscope zoom in. No, okay,
yeah,
yeah. I don't know. I could just see the R&D team at Apple. What's that quote from The Simpsons? We're all out of ideas and we haven't tried a thing.
That's true. So the general consensus here seems to be that most people, and keep in mind, they're watching a live stream with two guys who take photos with phones. So the audience is certainly swayed that way anyway, skewed that way. But it seems to me that most people here have either got or have had a DSLR or a mirrorless camera at some point, but for the most part use their phone, just like what you and I do for day-to-day stuff. Yeah. And I can't see that changing, to be honest.
And to that point about vacations, Rick Salmon went to Morocco and didn't even take his Sony camera. He left it at home. He went with just his iPhone, and the images he produced were phenomenal. And so it can definitely be done.
Absolutely. Look, this, even though this weekend is not a weekend holiday sort of thing, but my camera bag's sitting right there, and there's not a camera in it. There's the
It's all your
tripod, the
video gear.
microphone, and there's not even a video camera in there. I've bought 2 phones and the little tripod and microphones and stuff. That's it.
Oh yeah.
Didn't actually bring a camera with me. But I'll
But
certainly
you
be
did.
making
You
content
brought
here.
2.
You know what I mean. Stop it.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Anyway, I reckon we've jibber jabbered enough this morning, mate. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, now that I'm feeling better, you'll start seeing some videos again.
Cool.
Looks like Sarah's gone back to bed, but she's not sleeping because I'm sitting over in the corner here gobbing off. And we'll see you all in 2 weeks' time. What's the? I'll give your next column a plug, mate.
Yeah, it's going to be called "The Gap is Getting Smaller," and it's about it's kind of about the portrait mode ability, about what you can do with that technology.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I'll leave it at that. I don't want to give away too much.
Sure.
But it'll be out Tuesday, probably Tuesday morning my time. So
yes,
look for that.
I think I did a video on that. Sorry, mate, go on.
I was just going to say it's in your group. It's in the Explorers of Life group, and it's in the iPhonography podcast group. So just spreading it around. If
you're not in that Explorers of Life group, like our group here, like the Bloody Legends group, is generally about long exposures in astrophotography, and that's what the niche is. That Explorers of Life group, there's some of that in there, but there's so much more, just like landscape photography and regular just point and shoot street photography, all sorts of stuff in there. And it's actually a really bloody good group. There's some very talented photographers there. I think the groups are roughly the same sort of size. I think maybe within
pretty close,
within a few hundred, But it's the same sort of feel, I guess. It's not full of dickheads talking about you've Pixarted the crap out of that photo. It's not even a photo anymore. You know what I'm talking about. My God, I must admit that group. We're talking about a group called iPhone Photography, I think it's called.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
And it is a source of amusement for me, and for the admins of the Bloody Legends Facebook group.
Except me, I'm not in that group.
You've got to. You see, you take it all too seriously.
If I went in that group, I'd get too angry, I think. But you know what? I might just join it for the heck of it.
Yeah. And you've got people like Scott Baker there getting stuck in saying, this is not photography. This is like something that was a photo at some point many, many eons ago before you put it through all these different apps and then put shit into it that wasn't actually there. There's one guy there who's an admin on that group, right? And the photos that he takes, they're like really beautiful long exposures of water, of clouds, and then all of a sudden there's like a flock of birds or like perfectly still in the frame, or a boat. It's usually a boat and birds.
Yeah.
And the boat is like perfectly crisp, and he's obviously just going for the likes on the group because he's getting like hundreds and thousands of likes and interactions on the photos. And every photographer that goes in there goes, this isn't a photo. What are you doing? You're cheating, buddy. Yeah. But for those here watching, go and have a look at that Explorers of Life group. It really is a good group. There's no dickheads in there. There's no one bullshitting. And if they're posting an image that they'll tell you what it is. Like if they've manipulated the hell out of it to do something with it, they'll tell you what they've done. So they're not trying to pull the wool over your eyes, if you like.
And that's what I find too about the I call them pros, but I mean the DSLR users that are just getting into the iPhone stuff now. They're starting to play with apps that we played with months and years ago. And they're having fun with it though. But that's okay. Yeah. Let them experiment, but they're making some pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
And I just want to say this real quick before we sign off too. Look for my first column. It was called A Bold Move, and it's about my decision to go just iPhone and drop the DSLR. So I thought it was an interesting read too. So that's why I made it my first one.
Yep.
So
we'll have a look, mate. All right, buddy. Thank you. I'll see you again in 2 weeks. We'll talk, no doubt, between now and then.
Yeah,
everyone,
sure.
Thank you for joining in. We'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Thanks, everybody.
Catch you later.